Hi there everybody, this is lesson 1.2.4. You won't need a resource page today, but you will need a sheet of paper out, kind of like you see in front of you in the video. So if you don't have one out, pause the video, get out a piece of paper and a pencil. Alright, today we want to see what kinds of shapes we can make using, in this case, a half of a square. That's what we're going to call this triangle here. It's half a square. If we drew the other half, it would be a whole square. So it's half a square. And we want to see what shapes we can make by reflecting our half square over each side, and see what shapes we can make by rotating that half square around certain points as well. So, let's start by tracing this. And you're not going to have this half triangle in front of you, so you'll just have to kind of draw a half square on your own. So there's our half square all traced, and let's see what happens when we reflect this half square over this longest side here. So we're just going to take it. And we're going to flip it over that side. We're going to put it down. And we're going to trace it again where it ends up. And the question is, what kind of a shape? What kind of a shape do we get? Well, initially we said this was a half a square. And you know about the sides of a square, they're equal in length. So that means these two sides have to be the same length. Now, if we reflect this side and this side ends up over here, did we change the length of that side at all? No, we didn't. So these two have to be the same length also. And for the same reason, these two are going to be the same length. So we have a shape here with 4 equal sides. Now you may also know that the angles in a square are 90 degrees. So that means this one has to be 90 degrees. And since this angle, when we reflected it, ended up here, this one is also 90 degrees. And it kind of looks like these two are 90 also. So this shape also has 4 equal, we can even go a step further. Not only are they equal, we have 4 90-degree angles. And what kind of a shape has 4 equal sides and 4 90-degree angles? Well, we call that a square. Now let's trace our half a square again. There's our half square. So instead of reflecting it over this side this time, we're going to reflect it over this bottom side. Let's see what happens. So let's take our half square and we're going to flip it over that side. And we're going to trace it again. And again, you won't be able to trace this, but do just kind of sketch what you see on the screen. And we don't end up with a 4-sided figure this time like we did here. We ended up with just a bigger triangle, it looks like. But what kind of a triangle is it? Well, it looks like this angle is 90 degrees. So we've got one 90-degree angle. When we started with this side and we reflected it over this line, it went right here. And so since when you reflect an object, it doesn't change the size at all, that means these two sides have to be the same. So we have a triangle with one 90-degree angle and 2 sides the same length. So we'll put 2 equal sides. And that is called an isosceles. Isosceles means it has 2 equal sides. Right. That means it has one 90-degree angle or one right angle. triangle. Well, we've got one more side to reflect over. So let's trace this thing again. Let's see. We reflected it over this side already. This side is the second side that we reflected it over. So we got to reflect it over this side. Let's see what happens. Reflect it over that side. Now, hopefully that triangle looks familiar. That is the same triangle that we had here, just turned a little bit. If you turn your paper, this triangle that we just drew here, this triangle that we just made, would look exactly the same as this. So that's nothing new, so you don't have to do another one. So those are the only two shapes we can make with reflections of this half square. Well, what can we make using rotations? Let's see. We're going to start by tracing this triangle again. Okay, now we're not just going to rotate it around any point. We're actually asked in number 79 to rotate it around the midpoint of each side. Now, midpoint, just like it sounds, is the point in the middle. So we're going to start with this side here, and the point in the middle is right about there. So we're going to rotate this triangle around that midpoint and see what happens. So there we rotated it 180 degrees around that point, and what kind of a shape did we end up with? Well, we ended up with a square, which we already have up here, so we don't need to do that one again. Let's rotate it around the midpoint of this other side. Again, 180 degrees. Ooh, that looks like something different. So let's trace this thing. So we've got a four-sided figure here, and I apologize for it's a little sloppy there. We got a four-sided figure. When you rotate something, its size doesn't change either. All you're doing is turning the way it points, so the size doesn't change. So when we rotated this side, and it ended up down here, the size of that side or the size of that segment didn't change. So those two sides are the same length. For the same reason, these two sides are going to be the same length. So we have a four-sided figure where the opposite sides are equal. And that just means the sides on the opposite sides are, these two sides are opposite sides, they're equal. These two sides are opposite sides, they're equal also. This angle, when we rotated it, ended up down here. Angles don't change when you rotate them, so those two angles have to be the same. For the same reason, these two angles are going to be the same. And these two angles kind of look like they're the same also. So not only are opposite sides equal, we've got opposite angles are equal also. Now, is there a name for that shape that you can think of? Maybe it would help to turn it this way. It might look like a little more familiar to you. It's actually called a parallelogram. Okay, so let's see, we rotated it around this side. That didn't get us anything new. We rotated it around this side. That got us a parallelogram. We've still got to rotate it around this side. So let's copy that original triangle. We've got to rotate that thing around this point right here. So let's see what happens when we turn that thing 90 degrees. There's the shape we end up with. That looks a lot like this parallelogram we had before. It's actually exactly the same thing. So we don't get a new shape. So there are actually only 3 shapes we can get by reflecting or rotating this half of a square. And that's it. In class tomorrow, you'll do this same thing with some other shapes. But this is it for now. Hope you're having a wonderful afternoon or evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.